Welcome back to the Eight Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Today's topic is simplifying pass combos. Actually, a friend of mine asked me this about a week ago. We were going over some pass concepts, and he asked how I came up with the calls that I use for some of our pass concepts. So that's what I'm going to get into today, is just talking about how I came up with these calls for some of our pass combos. So in eight-man football, as you guys know, the most receivers you're going to have on a pass route at one time is 4. All right, and that's because you got to have one eligible tight end on each side of the line of scrimmage and 5 guys on the line at all times. So 3 guys is the most you can have on a single side of the field at one time. And that makes quads not possible at all in 8-man. So where I'm going with this is the majority of spread formations that you'll see in 8-man use twin receiver sets. So I'm going to talk about how you can simplify your pass combos of twin receivers to make your calls shorter and overall help your receivers quickly understand and recognize the call and then be able to execute it on the field. All right, so think of your main pass concepts. How many do you have? Most teams, I would guess, at least pass-heavy teams or teams that pass a little bit more than run, have anywhere from 6 to 10 pass concepts. And honestly, some teams might not have any. Some might just have a series of routes. But like I always say, there's no right or wrong. Just be willing to adapt to your players and do what works best for you and your team. All right, let's do some examples here. So let's say you run mesh or stick. Actually, let's just go with mesh. So starting with mesh, to call mesh, you can just call it mesh and expect your guys to know what they're doing each time, or you could give it a tag. So let's say mesh post, for example. You could call mesh post Mississippi, okay, for the M and the P in the word using that letter association, or another one, mesh corner. Again, if you wanted to keep it in like geography style for your pass combos, you could call it Mexico for mesh corner, okay? And I'm just kind of throwing these off the top of my head, but you guys can use Google or the dictionary or whatever to help you come up with these. But the idea here is that kids are actually smarter than you think, and you can associate letters in your play calls to stand for and mean the exact play concept that you're calling. All right. Another thing you could do is use word association, and this is actually kind of the thing that I do the most. So going back to mesh post as our example here again. In your twin set, the outside receiver is going to run the post. The inside receiver is going to run the shallow drag, set the mesh. So to word associate that, you could combine the 2 route combos together into one word. So post and drag together. For example, in this case, you could use the word padre, and that could mean post and drag. And it's that simple of a word association. All right. And it's that easy and simple for your players to remember. They hear padre, oh, it's outside in, post and drag. But it starts with, how do you call your plays? Do you call them in the huddle? Do you call them with wristbands? Do you use hand signals? Or do you do something else? But overall, doing this or looking at doing this can really shorten the length of your play calls down, especially if you start to look at all of your terminology like this. Now, that is just a couple examples. Another simple way to call specific pass routes would be by having a route tree, using a number system. And I know lots of people have done that as well, and just call the numbers in left to right or right to left, whatever's simpler for your players to remember. Again, the message there is your kids are smarter than you think. You can simplify your terminology down enough that you don't have to have a 5 to 10 word play call, but the tag can still be detailed enough to include exactly what you want them to do on each play. And that's through the usage of word and letter associations to the pass routes itself. I actually did this myself with my own offensive system. So, it really honestly helped me a lot when coming up with new and interesting hand signals, that matched each individual tag and play call. And again, I only went through examples here using the mesh concept. But I would say just be willing to think outside the box sometimes, put trust in your players to be able to pick things up if you tell them why the play is called what it is. If you do that, then they'll also understand the reasoning behind the letter and the word associations, and it's just going to keep things simple overall. Also, like I've said before, if you're a team that uses hand signals, they'll really be able to help you out with hand signals, especially if you look at using these word and letter associations to help with your pass combos. So that's it. I kind of went into some of the things that helped me come up with simplifying pass combos and coming up with different play calls and tags to make it a little easier for my players to remember. And overall, I truly believe it's shortened our play calls down. And overall, again, it helps my receivers just quickly understand and recognize the call, and then they go out and execute it on the field. And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. Remember, videos come out every Tuesday night, so be sure to tune in. If you have a question for me, the best way to reach me is by commenting in the comment section below. If you've learned anything or enjoyed any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here on the screen. And like always, thanks for tuning in, guys.